following program contains real-life investigations of animal species unclassified by science. Documented evidence suggests that these creatures may be dangerous. The producers strongly discourage any attempt to encounter, hunt, or capture these creatures. Doing so could result in injury or loss of life.
One evening late, just about dusk dark, a friend of mine, we encountered eyes that were yellow or ambrish colored real wide apart. So a friend of mine, Jim Hartzaw, came face to face with this thing. It looked something like 8, about 7 foot tall, and he fired on it. He said when he did, the eyes went out. So probably what happened, it turned and ran, and we went back the next day and checked for sign and blood, but we didn't find any.
What do we got cooking today? Well, we've got a priest sighting of a lake monster near Edmonton, Canada.
Any monster hunt that Mike and Rob go on begins at American Monsters headquarters, which for the time being is located at their home in Auburn, New York. Here they monitor the American Monsters website for the latest eyewitness reports from other cryptozoologists and from the general public.
General area, so we should be able to track down the eyewitnesses.
In order to finance their monster hunting adventures, Rob and Mike need to hold down day jobs between monster hunts.
I'm a public address announcer for the local baseball team here in Auburn. 3 up, 3 down, and at the end of 1.5, it's your Auburn Doubledays 3 and the Mahoning Valley Scrappers 2. Rob is a freelance writer and sometimes writes articles for our local paper, and on the weekends we gear up and hunt monsters.
The reason I hunt for monsters is because I have to believe that there is an adventure left out there.
There's more evidence for monsters existing than there are for other things like ghosts or the supernatural.
Every day there are new animals being discovered, and most of these animals, such as the mountain gorilla, which wasn't discovered until the early part of the 20th century, were only native legend, scoffed at by civilized society, until somebody actually went into the jungles and encountered this animal. The giant squid, once a myth, now a reality. The coelacanth, who would have thought after 65 million years they would have discovered a new one. This earth is still full of mystery. I don't want to live in a GPS world where everyone thinks everywhere is safe and secure and well mapped out, because I know that's not the truth. I want to go to places where there is still living, breathing, truth-filled, dangerous mystery. And if we can come back with the evidence that proves that there is an animal heretofore unknown to science, then that's exactly what I live for. So the first place we went when we were in Louisiana was to go right to the source. The original eyewitness who came forward was Harlan Ford.
Harlan Ford was the first person to research it. He went out expressly with the purpose of trying to capture this creature.
He was not indigenous to the area. He was not aware of the legends that had gone back all the way to the Spanish settlers. So when he was hunting and he encountered this animal, this creature, it was a complete shock to him, and it changed his life forever. He had since passed on, but his granddaughter Dana had written a book on the subject, and she was still around. We're about halfway down to Slidell, Louisiana. We're looking for Dana Holyfield, the granddaughter of Harlan Ford. We're hoping she can turn us on to some eyewitnesses, and then we're hoping to recreate the situation under which most people have encountered this monster. Maybe we'll get lucky ourselves.
Although the Honey Island swamp monster has been seen along the bayous and marshes of this area for many years, most of the sightings have occurred in dense, thick forest overgrowth like this. That's where Harlan Ford originally saw it back in 1974. There have even been some cases of people saying that they've seen the monster cross their path along major interstates late at night.
What do you think about the Honey Island swamp monster?
I don't know if they got such a thing. Growing up as a child and listening to him, I knew he was telling
about my grandfather.
Harlan Ford had actually more than one eyewitness encounter with this animal. He went out many times looking for the animal and managed to find tracks, which he took plaster casts of.
The first time he saw it was in '63, and then he went back into the swamp and found the actual tracks that, from the same thing they saw before in the same area. And then that's when they poured them and had the zoologist come in. As you see, it's got like webbed kind of feet.
This is not the typical ape man that you see in the Patterson-Gimlin footage. This thing is completely unknown to the annals of science, cryptozoology, or zoology.
I believe my grandfather, because he was a serious kind of man. He was determined to find this thing again, and he spent many times going out there just to look for that. There's a man that told me a story. I actually wrote it in the book. Him and this girl, he brought this girl out there to camp, this old abandoned camp, way out in the swamp. It started raining really hard. All of a sudden, he hit through the weather. He got his gun and he said, in the rain, you can see these things moving around, and like they didn't want him there, and they were making that screaming, yelling noise. He went out on the porch and started shooting out to the said that he left. So whatever it is out there, I think, doesn't want people around.
Meeting Dana had put the boys just 2 degrees of separation from the Honey Island swamp monster, but Dana gave them the names of some locals who had encountered the creatures themselves. Even though they had just driven all night, they were too excited to sleep. They fueled up on coffee and set out to find the eyewitnesses who had seen the Honey Island swamp monster with their own eyes.
I'd never saw it before, but I'd heard a lot of talk about it, and I was kind of, up in the air about it, Don't know if you ain't never seen it, it could be a prank, But I'm here to tell you today, it's no prank. He's in this swamp.
I've been to Mayor Pearl River for 12 years. I think there's been some people that have seen him, in the swamp. But I don't know if he's been attacked by it.
That's a real monster for you.
I've lived here all my life. I have 3 degrees in biology. Worked for 14 years as an environmental consultant doing research on wetlands. There are actually portions of this swamp where something like that could survive and without being seen by people if it wanted to. I did see something I can never rectify myself. Late in the evening, and I was on this bluff, and I looked down and I saw this big black thing walking upright, kind of striding human-like. And just as I saw it, I just kind of glanced. I went and looked back. What was that? Looked, it was gone. And I'm not making this up. I saw it.
My brother and I was camped out up on Homer's Bayou. It came walking up, picked up the piece of rabbit that I threw away, and took him a bite of it and looked at us and turned around and just walked off, guys. It had every chance in the world to kill us. And we took the headlight and tried to get around in front of it to get a better look at it, and everything went silent. It was about 8 foot tall, looked like it could have weighed about 550, 600 pounds. Kind of reddish brown, little gray here and there, kind of like a silverback gorilla on its back. It had an awesome smell. It smelled like somebody dead. It's a very intelligent being. You don't see it all that often, and if you see it, it's by chance or it wants you to see it. We had the fear in our eyes that night.
After we were finished talking to the primary eyewitnesses, Mike and I decided we had to go looking for the creature.
We knew what it liked to eat, we knew where it had been spotted most recently, and we had Harlan Ford's map.
The unusual thing about the pattern of sightings on Harlan Ford's map was that they seemed concentrated in one area of the Honey Island swamp. That's where we decided to concentrate our efforts.
The area that the supposed swamp monster probably would be in would probably be in the northern end of the swamp where it grades into bottomland forest. It's a real thick, hard to reach portion of the swamp.
It ain't like going into the edge of the swamp, you'd be going into the heart of the swamp.
We recruited Captain Ben Aitken, a local swamp guide, and he took us as far into the swamp as he could.
They knew that spending a night in the swamp was risky, but they had come too far to go back home with nothing more than other people's stories. They had to try to find this creature for themselves and bring back evidence of its existence.
Macon warned us that you're going into places nobody's ever been before. Make sure that you keep track of where you're traveling to so you can get back out.
We were armed only with our cameras, but we did take some precautions. We brought some pepper spray, a stun gun, but we would never bring any guns.
And I had even joked around on the way down, what's a stun gun gonna do to the Honey Island swamp monster?
After that, we were on foot. We hiked deeper into the hardwood portion of the swamp where most of these sightings had taken place according to Harlan Ford's map. And that's where we set up camp.
After we set up our camp, we started to get out our equipment. And we knew that this creature liked rabbits, but unfortunately we could only get a squirrel.
What we've got here, Mike, is bait. The Honey Island swamp monster is a notorious scavenger, and on short notice, this is about as close as we could get to a rabbit carcass. What we are going to do is put our motion detector on this tree, facing our squirrel bait. We're going to hook it up to our simple Hi8 camera. It has an automatic on switch, so if anything passes between our motion detector and our squirrel bait, this camera will capture it. Tomorrow morning, we'll check the tape. We'll hope for the best.
As night fell, the swamp seemed to close in on our monster hunters. They were miles from civilization in a hostile environment filled with snakes, wild boars, panthers, and perhaps the Honey Island swamp monster. With their equipment in place, all they had to do now was wait.
It's about 2 a.m. and something has woken me up. There is something outside of our tent. I don't know if the microphone is picking this up. There's definitely something outside of our tent.
Mike just ran outside. There's noise outside. I'm gonna go find out what he's doing out there. What? Did you see something?
Yeah, something knocked over the camera. Over there. There was definitely something there.
God, scared the hell out of me. Shh. What? Take the camera. I heard something go off this way. Oh my God. Look at these broken branches. Look at them.
Look at all of these branches. They're all broken down. Look at that, right there. Look at that branch. Crack.
Oh my God.
He was right outside of our tent. He was right outside. You were
Crazy
asleep. It was right outside of the tent.
Is that what you heard?
Before you woke up, there was something right outside the tent.
This is the creepiest thing that has ever happened to me. This is unbelievable, man. There is something big. The squirrel is gone.
Something knocked over the camera.
Something
knocked over the camera while I was out here in front of the tent.
We gotta build the fire back up. We're gonna check all the equipment and we're gonna get the hell out of here. And we're gonna see what we got.
In 1974 is when he came across the same area and the same tracks.
Check out these tracks, man. I've never seen anything like it.
And that was a time when they were out there duck hunting and they saw that these hogs had their throats just torn out and left there to die.
Oh man, look. It's a head. This is some sort of ripped up animal head. Oh, it's nasty.
Nobody shot these things. Their heads were ripped off.
Well, you know, if a person did it, why would they cut the head off and leave it here? I'd have to say this is definitely done by an animal.
When we played back the tape, The moment it had been knocked over, we caught something moving across the frame. We slowed it down, we watched it over and over again. There was a hairy object that came within frame for just a split second. It wasn't myself, it wasn't Mike. It had to have been an animal. I don't know what it was.
I'd love to say that it was the monster. There is just a split second of something, and we caught something on tape.
I like to think that we had our own close encounter with the Honey Island Swamp Monster.
Further review of Mike and Rob's footage recorded that night yielded even more startling evidence. Difficult to make out, but visible, was about 5 seconds of a dark shape walking upright through the brush. Was this the Honey Island Swamp Monster?
So if you have a monster that you want to tell us about, email us and tell us all about it at www.americanmonsters.com. We want to find your monster.